is present. So I will call this meeting of the May 6th, 2024 Plan Commission meeting to order. First, we will get some information from our technical facilitator. Jesse?
All right. Welcome to a virtual Plan Commission meeting. We're going to cover a few basic items before beginning. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. To members and city staff members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. Use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak or ask questions. Staff, click raise hand when you are asked a question. The chair will do the best to call on committee members in the order in which their hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. To members of the public who have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After all registrants speak, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the commission, please send it to the email list in today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jesse. First, communications, disclosures, and recusals. Members of the body should make any required disclosures or recusals under the city's ethics code. Are there any disclosures or recusals? I see no raised hands. I do have one item of communications that I would like to share. And unfortunately, we didn't recognize her at our last at her last meeting, but Kathleen Spencer was on the Plan Commission for 6 years, and we truly appreciate her service and her input and her insights, and wish her well. Next, we will move on to minutes of April 8th regular meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing no raised hands, is there a motion to approve? Moved by Commissioner Solheim, seconded by Alder Field. And I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Our upcoming meetings are Monday, May 20th, June 10th, June 24th, and all of those will be at 5:30, and those will be virtual meetings. Next, we will go through our consent agenda. So it is the custom of the Plan Commission to remove from the agenda those items on which staff believes an application has had sufficient review to warrant approval with all the conditions placed upon it by the various city departments, and on which the applicant accepts those conditions, and there are no individuals who have registered to speak in opposition to the items. Those items, along with any referrals or withdrawn applications, are placed onto a consent agenda and are addressed at the beginning of our meeting. Of the items before us today, the following are proposed for the consent agenda. Agenda item 4, Legistar 82730. Agenda item 5, Legistar 82731. Agenda item 7, withdrawn by the applicant, Legistar 81562. And then for referral, agenda items 10 through 13. Are there any requests for separation of any of those items? Seeing no raised hands, I'll read the items into the record. So again, agenda item 4, Legistar 82730, located at 1874 East Washington Avenue, Alder District 12, consideration of a conditional use in the commercial corridor transitional district for an outdoor eating area for a restaurant tavern tenant in a mixed-use building. Agenda item 5, Legistar 82731, located at 105 East Lakeview Avenue, Alder District 15, consideration of a demolition permit to demolish a single-family residence. And then agenda item 7, Legistar 81562, has been withdrawn by the applicant and therefore should be placed on file without prejudice. Then the following items are for referral and are grouped. So it's agenda item 10, Legistar 81923, agenda item 11, Legistar 82903, agenda item 12, Legistar 81925, and agenda item 13, Legistar 81945. Do I have a motion for approval of our consent agenda? Moved by Alder Field, seconded by Commissioner Mendez. Any comments at all on any of the items? Seeing no raised hands, I'll assume unanimous consent, and that approves then the consent agenda. Okay, the next item is agenda item 2, Legistar 82915, adopting the recommendations for the Bus Rapid Transit North-South Corridor outlined in attachment 1 and described in the report entitled North-South Bus Rapid Transit Locally Preferred Alternative. So all those items are in the Legistar file. And I understand that we're going to get an overview by Mick Roush of the Metro staff. Hi, Mick. Please go ahead.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. All right. I have a I have to say that I am subbing in for Liz Callan for transportation. She had some travel challenges today, so she asked me to fill in. So if there are any technical questions, I will do my best to answer, but I might need to phone a friend and get back to you on a couple questions. Just wanted to let you know that ahead of time. All right. So I will share my screen. All right. Can you see that okay? Okay, great. So I'm here to talk to you tonight about our second proposed bus rapid transit route, the Rapid Route B. And right now we are taking our draft locally preferred alternative through the different committees and asking people to support the resolution to approve the draft. Rapid Route B would be Metro's second bus rapid transit route. It's going to run about 11.5 miles of new BRT running way. It's going to be about, and that would go along with our east-west route that we are going to open this fall sometime. But this north-south route that we're talking about, it's going to have 26 new stations, and it's going to share about 3.5 miles and 9 stations with our route that we're launching in the fall, the Rapid Route A. BRT in general is going to feature service every 15 minutes, and it's going to have these high-quality stations that I'm sure you've seen all popping up throughout the city. Vehicles on the BRT routes are going to have priority at traffic signals, and there are going to be dedicated lanes with fewer stops. And we are also implementing all new fare technology, so we'll be boarding with smart cards at the front, middle, and the rear of the bus, so you'll have faster fare payment, and it'll be faster to board the bus. And then these routes will also feature all-electric 60-foot articulated buses, which were purchased through the East-West BRT project. And our drivers are out learning those right now, so you've probably seen those on the street as well. The questions for why invest in bus rapid transit along Route B. The Route B would serve approximately 53,000 people. It'll provide access to about 40,000 jobs. And there's 43 schools and childcare centers located along the route, with 10 grocery stores and 4 hospitals and more. The rapid Route B would improve accessibility. It would bring a lot of safety improvements, especially along the crosswalks in that general area to access the stations. It's going to serve 14,000 lower income families and will help us leverage millions in federal investments. And it will show our continued commitment to equity, and will serve about 40% people of color. And the question is, why are we investing in bus rapid transit? Basically, we are expecting a lot of new jobs and a lot of new people in Dane County and the Madison area in the next many years. And so we have nowhere to expand. So a lot of major cities have already taken the next step into implementing bus rapid transit. And so we think this would be a good logical solution for the north-southeast, for the north-south sides of Madison, and as well as Fitchburg. So what is the locally preferred alternative? Basically, it's the community decides on what their preferred mode and route is, and how that will best meet the needs of the corridors. So the locally preferred alternative will identify what type of mode it'll be, either BRT, light rail, what kind of route alignment, and where the station locations are going to be. And what it's not is it's not a detailed design document yet. It's not the end of analysis. It's just the beginning, and it's not approval of funding. And it's not the end of public involvement. It's just the start, and it's just a general idea that we need to establish to get the process rolling. Why is it important? It solidifies key planning decisions, and it also helps us get preliminary engineering and environmental analysis started, and it helps us in the future avoid delays and costs. So, summary of the draft LPA is coming up. Basically, in 2012, the MPO studied and analyzed bus rapid transit, light rail, commute rail, and streetcar. And basically, light rail was dismissed. It was dismissed at first. It was the cost was just too high. Commuter rail was also dismissed, the high cost and route and station limitations. Streetcars were also dismissed due to high cost and limited travel time improvements. And we did select bus rapid transit due to its cost effectiveness and route and station options, travel time improvements, and ability to integrate into the existing roadway system. And you'll see a good example of that with our east-west route. Basically, the Route A is going to head west towards Middleton, and it is going to end at Junction Road. BRT is going to end at Junction Road, but it is going to be able to continue on. Those buses are going to be able to continue on into Middleton and then come back and start with BRT again. So we have that kind of flexibility with the stations that we wouldn't have if we were just putting down rail for light rail. The recommended route is the Route B, which is the green line on this map. It's going to operate the north side all the way to Knutson Drive, and the south is going to take us all the way, the south end is going to take us all the way into Fitchburg. As I mentioned, a lot of the stations are under construction. We have, if you're out and about, you'll see some of the west side stations are a little bit further along than the ones on the east side, but we hope to have them all ready by in August, and we hope to launch our first Rapid Route A in the fall. A lot of the stations you'll notice are center running bus lanes, or they feature center running bus lanes. This offers more consistent travel times. There's a lot fewer conflicts with turning vehicles and bikes by keeping them in the left lane away from all that is happening in the right. Another big thing is the bus lane. If it's center running bus lanes, they're not blocked by delivery vehicles, and there's fewer right-of-way and utility issues, and it's just a better look and feel for passengers. And this is a big question: how will they work? We've been getting that question a lot, and we are making some videos that we're going to have on our website in the next month or two to show people, give them a better idea of how they all work. But basically, passengers will safely access the station using signalized crosswalks, and then doors are located on both sides of the bus. So basically, whichever side the bus pulls up on, you'll be able to safely get out on either side of the bus, and you won't have to be, you won't be going out into the street. We're getting that question a lot, so we wanted to emphasize the fact that there are doors on both sides of the bus. The north segment, the bus stations, or excuse me, the BRT stations will be at Kennedy, Murphy, Troy, School, and throughout the rest of this list. And then we also have central segments. The central segment stations are at Milwaukee, 4th, 1st, Baldwin, Patterson, Blair, and then also at the Square, State Street, and East Campus. And in South Madison, we have stations at Regent, Washington, Aaron, Fish Hatcheries, Cedar, Planert, Burr Oaks, Hughes, and Badger. And then in Fitchburg, we're going to have, we're looking at 5 stations at the Greenway, Post, High Ridge, Cahill, Maine, and McKee. And Mike Chekvala, who's the project leader of BRT, he is not with us tonight because he's actually speaking with Fitchburg tonight, talking with them about this same thing. So the question about funding is, how does that relate to upfront costs and ongoing operations? So basically how it affects our capital budget is we're getting a large chunk of our capital funding through federal grants, the Small Starts Grant through the FTA, and there's also the Areas of Persistent Poverty Grant. And then local funding sources are the City of Madison, the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, the local tax increment financing, and also the City of Fitchburg. It's not expected to affect Metro's operating costs. We're already running the route. Route B is already out there, so we don't expect any additional or not a lot of changes. Labor costs are, like I said, are already covered in the Route B, and then we are expected to realize some cost savings from travel time, and we're also going to save some money on fuel because we're running electric buses. So we expect that to offset any expenses from station maintenance. So then the next steps are, we are in the planning, environmental review, and design. And that's going to take place from now and through until 2026, and then 2026 through 2028 is when we plan to construct the new route, and then 2028 we hope to open. So how we are getting to the locally preferred alternative is right now we are taking feedback. We've just finished a number of public meetings that we went to the north side, south side, and we also went to Fitchburg. And we have recordings of those meetings if anyone was interested. It's basically this presentation, just a little more detailed, representing the side of town we were on. That's at our website at madisonbrt.com. Then the next step is we finalize a recommendation and create a report to create the locally preferred alternative document. And then we send that for adoption to the City of Madison and the City of Fitchburg. And through the whole thing, there will be a lot of public and stakeholder involvement, and we'll be soliciting feedback through this whole thing. So this, like I said, this is just the very beginning of the process, and it's not the end. So if you have any questions, you can look at our website at madisonbrt.com, or you can send us an email at brt@cityofmadison.com and to learn more. And with that, I'd be glad to answer as many questions as I can.
Okay, thank you, Mick. We
course.
don't have any registrants for this item, so are there any questions for Mick? Alderfield.
Hi, thank you, Mick, for joining us and taking questions.
Sure.
Many of us I know are pretty excited to see the system come online east-west this year and looking forward to planning for north-south. I was wondering about one stretch of North Park Street with 3 blocks of mixed traffic. So the Common Council had been shared from transportation staff a memo describing some of the small business outreach in that area where parking was one of the main points of discussion and contention, with the idea that parking might not be available if the dedicated lane continues up through that stretch. I was wondering, so part of the memo described that this area's businesses would be some of the most impacted. And that was part of the rationale for leaving parking in those 3 blocks and requiring BRT buses to use mixed traffic. I was wondering if you could describe at all how the assessment of impact kind of was examined and analyzed compared to other parts of the city.
Wow, that's a question that I can't. Liz was the lead in that, and I can't answer that question. But I could get that information from her, and we could send that to the group. I'm sorry, the lead-off question, I can't answer that one.
Yeah, I knew it was a weedy one. If you could please, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet. Of course. Yep.
Commissioner Solheim.
Thank you. I guess related to that, not so much to the outreach portion that Elderfield already asked about it, but I just wanted to clarify as I was looking at the exhibits for the alternative noted for Park Street. It looked like the mixed traffic was in the couple blocks around like the Mason and the pizza place there, but then where like Taqueria Guadalajara was, that the parking was able to be maintained while also having a dedicated bus lane. Am I interpreting that correctly? So basically the mixed traffic was only needed for the other section of Park Street?
Oh, that's a great, the parking I know has been, Liz has been working on
Sorry.
that so closely. I am so sorry. It's like, why did you invite this person? He can't answer anything. I'm
No,
sorry.
I understand. That's okay. I do have one more. We'll see.
Yeah. I'll do my best.
It was
I got to get one. Yeah.
mentioned in the report in a couple sections was about needing or targeting having at least 50% of the route as dedicated bus lanes, and that was tied to federal funding standards, I believe, as well as a general goal. Can you clarify with the current plan and that alternative? I'm doing the rough math roughly in my head, and it seems like this proposal is below 50%. Am I reading that correctly?
I don't think, I mean, if it's a requirement, we have to hit that requirement. So I would have to have Mike and Liz get back to you on that too. But I mean, that is a requirement to do it. So I would say that we would have to hit it. And I can't explain why, but
Okay.
Yeah, I just to follow up, I see no other hands raised on that topic, because on page 1 it says a little more than half of Rapid Route B will be in dedicated bus only lanes. However, attachment A shows 6.3 miles of mixed traffic and only 5.2 miles of center bus lanes. So, you know, there's a conflict there in the information that we're getting, it seems to me. And
Like
Patrick, did you
I'm
have
sorry.
something on that topic, or should we let Mick respond? Okay. Mick, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to say that, like I said, this is the beginning piece of all this to discuss all these items. So it is not the final plan whatsoever. So these are pieces of information that we can get back to you and answer all those questions.
Okay, great. Thank you. Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. Mick, I don't know if you can answer this one. It's a different realm of question. Because we're hearing so much about the city's budget issues in the future, do you feel like the pie chart that you showed with, I think, now I've forgotten if it was $10 million of general obligation borrowing being the primary portion of that pie chart that would impact the city's budget, even though that would really only be the interest on that borrowing. Is the pie chart relatively accurate as far as you know? Or I mean, I'm sure it could change somewhat, but
It is
about that.
It is relatively accurate, and we actually did a Q&A on just how this all affects the budget, and I can send that to the group. I do have that flyer available, and it's got a lot of details that Tom Lynch, our transportation director, put together. So I'd be glad to send that along. It's very informative. So I will send that along.
That would be great. Thank you. That was my question.
Alder Figueroa Cole.
Thank you. Mick, I came in a little bit late. Is this the same presentation that you guys were using for community engagement?
Yes, same one.
All right, good. So, can you refresh my memory? Is there a slide with a timeline of this particular resolution?
A timeline of the resolution? No, we had a project timeline of just exactly what is our project timeline, but not the resolution. Right now, this resolution has been sent to all the different city committees for recommendation to adopt, but this is just the LPA, it's not the project.
So that's what I wanted to also try to understand. What is the difference here? Like, what are we adopting where we're still making changes? And I know that we're still collecting information from the public and adjusting. So what exactly is the expectation for this adoption instead of being an informational item?
This is just a general plan. It's just a general local preferred alternative. It's not a final plan. It's just a general direction to kickstart the project. It's just to kind of get us all started in one place and then start talking and give input and tinker with it while we're moving through the design process. So it's just a starting plan. It's not an ending plan by any means. It's the start.
So we are adopting the baseline of the project pretty much.
Correct. Yes.
So then all the questions like, if it's the 50% or whatever, or how many miles of, where the parking is, that's just all of that can change and as we go along.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. And then eventually this will come to council for the same thing, just to get the project started and okay.
Yep.
All right.
And once we get through all this is the general idea, and an official document will be created that will have all these details in it. So we did that with the East-West as well, and it was a very lengthy document with a lot of details. So this is just kind of the general idea to get that document started.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. Mick, just one more question. Will this resolution and the materials, have they gone to Transportation Commission yet? Or will they be going there after this before it goes to council?
I believe we've been taking this show on the road for a while. I believe we've been to Transportation Commission already.
So they've already weighed in on the changes on Park Street in the parking?
I believe so.
Okay. I wasn't able to tell in Legistar if that had occurred yet or not.
I believe we did. I'm sorry that I don't have that, but I'll send that all along. I'm keeping a list.
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
Tim? Parks?
Yeah, I'll just chime in real quick for Mick that this particular resolution has not been to Transportation Commission yet.
Okay.
They are the lead referral, and the Plan Commission will be making its recommendation tonight to Transportation. Thanks.
Thanks, you,
Tim.
Tim. Did you have anything else, Commissioner Heck? Alder Figueroa Call.
Thank you. So on that note, Tim, what are we recommending? Are we just focusing on the zoning for the parking in Park Street, or anything specific on the plan that Plan Commission has authority over?
Sorry, was that for me?
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. I liked it better when Mick was answering the question.
Hey,
No, the plan for the upper part of Park Street, and Mick, correct me if I'm wrong, is part of the locally preferred alternative. And so the Plan Commission is making a recommendation on where and how BRT should go north-south, including along that section of Park Street. We're not doing anything with the zoning of private property. We're entirely within the rights of way of the various streets that BRT is proposed to go along in this locally preferred alternative.
so again, what exactly is the purview of Plan Commission here? Just a general.
You're providing a recommendation to the Transportation Commission on what you believe their recommendation should be to the Common Council as it pertains to the locally preferred alternative for the north-south BRT. Again, the how and what of north-south BRT.
Did you have any further questions, Alder Figueroa Call?
No, not at this moment. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. Anything else? One question I have, has it been decided that there will not, that this will not take into, the route, the airport? Is that a final decision, or is there going to be further discussion about that?
It is not part of the current LPA that we're looking at. So that could be, like I said, we're still accepting feedback, so we still can, take a look at that. But as of right now, it's not part of the recommendation.
And can you give a little context for that? Because that's one of the things I've heard most is that the desirability of having the route go to the airport.
Yeah, I would just say, I know we have the route going to the airport now, and we aren't getting a lot of ridership. So I can just say that anecdotally. I don't know if that's transportation's official response to that or not, but I know our ridership is pretty light out there right now. So I would assume that's the reasoning behind it, but we can send that over to you as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mick? Alder Figueroa Cole.
I just gonna wait for discussion.
Oh,
I don't have
okay.
any other questions. Thank you.
Yeah, we've got another question, I think. Commissioner McCahill, did you have something?
I'll wait also.
Okay. Okay, I don't see any raised hands on questions. Do we have a motion? Commissioner Solheim.
Actually, I have a question.
Okay, that's fine. Go ahead.
Given that we have a few, I certainly don't want to hold this up, but given that we have some outstanding questions, I'm wondering if we can potentially move ahead with the recommendation with some conditions or language that additional information is requested to address questions like, the 50% and engagement with Park Street businesses. And any additional information about the airport route. Would that make sense?
That makes sense to me, to have something like that, since there are several questions that are outstanding. So to have the motion include a provision for getting that information back. Commissioner McCahill.
Yeah, thanks. I'll jump in with a little more context. So I didn't realize it was coming back to Transportation Commission again so soon, but an early version of this did go to Transportation Commission, and there was a discussion about the parking on Park Street and service to the airport. So answers to those questions are out there. I won't walk through them. So to the extent that helps advise Plan Commission's recommendation back to Transportation Commission, that's what I can.
And I'm glad I wasn't misremembering, so thank you, Chris.
Alder Figueroa Cole.
Yeah, so I went to 2 of these meetings, and there's one that is recorded that I haven't watched. So I don't know if the recorded version talk about the topics that you guys are seeking answers, but in one of the meetings, the businesses on Park Street was heavily discussed, and in the Fishburne meeting, the airport discussion was pretty robust. One of the things was like avoiding duplication of what is there now. But if Commissioner Solheim, I'm not sure if that was if you were posting that as to be a motion to just send us the information back as an email or something, I will be fine with second that motion because it just stated that those questions are being discussed in multiple meetings already, so the answers are already out there. So I don't know if that.
Thank you, Alder. Commissioner Solheim.
I will go ahead and make a motion that the Plan Commission adopt the recommend adoption of the BRT North-South locally preferred alternative, the Transportation Commission, with the additional comments that additional information will be provided to the Plan Commission via email regarding the questions discussed at this meeting.
Now I second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Alderfield.
Thank you, Chair. I did watch the recording of this presentation in Transportation Commission, and I think the remaining detail that I didn't see addressed in that presentation nor in the memo to council was the question of impact and what that means and how the impact is different in this stretch of Park Street from Rapid Route A. So I'm going to vote no on the motion. Thank you.
Any further comments, discussion? Alder Figueroa Cole.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, I will be definitely supporting the motion. Again, being on a couple of the meetings in person with the topics have been the center of the conversation, specifically when it comes to the impact of taking into consideration the businesses on that particular 3-block session of small businesses and people of color being the business owners. The equity component on this decision making is pretty high to ignore, so that's what I'm comfortable with this passing this supporting this motion. And secondly, understanding better, because I was a little bit confused as to why are we approving this already, understanding that this is just to get the plan kicked off and really start working on it and coming back to us with multiple designs over the next few years. I'm fine making a recommendation for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Any further comments or discussion? Seeing none, we will come to a vote. And I would like to see, okay, I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Okay, Alderfield votes no on the motion. Everybody else was in favor of the motion. If that's not correct, raise your hand. Okay, got it. Thank you. Motion does pass. Moving on then to, and thank you, Mick, for being here. Sorry to put you in the hot seat on some things that you were not able to respond to.
Well, I appreciate everyone's patience. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Agenda item 3, Legistar 81965, amending sections with chapter 28 of the Madison General Ordinance related to drive-through windows. Could Mick unshare his screen, please? Thank you. I have a question. Do people want to have a brief presentation from zoning on this, or are you good with proceeding without? Just kind of raise your hand if you would like a brief presentation. Okay, so we will go with that. Katie, can you please give a brief presentation in regard to this item?
Thank you, Chair.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. So there's a couple things happening with this code change as proposed. You can see a lot of the details within the staff memo, but I'll kind of give a brief overview, and if you have questions about any of the details, happy to answer those questions. So the first thing is there's some changes to the regulations specific to what the zoning code calls vehicle access sales and service windows, also known as a drive-through. Next, the code clarifies the current application of the code regarding when compliance with provisions of the zoning code are triggered. It also adds a new threshold for when full compliance with the auto infrastructure requirements in the TOD overlay district, the transit oriented development overlay district, would come into place. And lastly, there's some more like cleanup type code changes related to drive-throughs. So as far as changes that are more substantial changes to the drive-through, right now the zoning code has a number of places where the zoning code says you have an option for a drive-through or a requirement for a drive-through if you're doing a drive-through or vehicle access sales and service window, that the drive-through be under the building. And we've had a couple of these that have come through, and what's happened is the policymakers, Alder Fields here, one of the sponsors, and Alder Evers, some of the results of what was happening with under the building is pretty general. Wanted to make it more specific and end up with something that hides the drive-through a little bit more with a more substantial building. So that language is changed from under the building to fully under an occupiable condition story. So we have a definition for story. It would have to be occupiable. So it couldn't just be something that's put there for looks, and it has to be conditioned space. So it actually would be heated and cooled. Another more substantial change to the drive-through standards are that it prohibits drive-through only establishments. Today, you can have an establishment that exclusively can be accessed through a drive-through window, whether you're driving in a car or using a bicycle. And there were some concerns about that, of what we're moving towards as a community, towards allowing and encouraging more establishments that would be open to people arriving by foot or by transit. So there'd be an opportunity either to do something like a walk-up window or have an ability for someone to go inside the establishment to receive service. You wouldn't have to arrive and use a drive-through window either with a car or bicycle. As far as the non-conforming site conditions piece, today the zoning code requires a couple things. So if you have a new principal building, full compliance, your entire site has to come up to compliance with all parts of the zoning code. And then we've also have any new site elements when those come into place. For example, with adding new parking in the TOD overlay, that new parking has to meet the standards within the zoning code. So this clarifies some of those kind of longstanding code applications that maybe weren't as clear as they could be in the code today. I mentioned there is also a new threshold for that full site compliance. So 50% of building floor area addition would require that auto infrastructure on a site in the transit oriented development overlay would all have to be brought 100% up to compliance when you kind of reach that threshold of a 50% building addition. That seemed to be kind of a reasonable threshold of when you're making that level of investment, you can make other substantial site changes to get fully into compliance with the auto infrastructure site standards, while not preventing someone from being able to reuse an existing site that doesn't meet. So some of what you're hearing is that the transit-oriented development overlay, as many of you know, as you are part of that discussion, is really a pretty substantial departure from how we've allowed sites to develop under our zoning code today in a very auto-centric way. We have a number of sites today that have a lot of auto infrastructure in front of the building, between the building and the street. And today, the TOD overlay doesn't allow that. So moving towards more compliance when we have these major site redevelopments with a 50% building addition. I was just going to skim real quickly any of the others that maybe jump out. One would be just changing the language from vehicle access sales and service window to drive-through window. This is something we have all the time, just as zoning code staff. We're always looking for opportunities to make it easier to use the zoning code. And so often we have both residents and developers, business owners looking for information about drive-throughs, and they can't find where it is in the code just because it's not a common term that's used for a drive-through. Yeah, otherwise it's just kind of some cleanup of things that were duplications or unclear that we thought would assist with applying the code throughout the city. But here for any questions you have.
Thank you. We do have one registrant, so I will open the public hearing. Linda Leonards, South Patterson Street, Madison, opposed and wishing to speak. Linda, you have 3 minutes.
Hello. So last time I had sent a long letter with primarily a bunch of things I thought could be corrected, but I'm not going to go through any of that. Alderfield's blog talked about how, to make any more changes, restrictions, designs, it would have the practical effect of making drive-throughs pretty much unavailable in the city. But that was exactly for TSS streets what was originally intended, that they would be limited, they would be small, that they would not be seen from the street. They would be hidden. I provided some information in my letter in terms of the history of this. Since 2017, there's only been 2 that have met the standard. And it's really a question of whether something like Chick-fil-A with, 30 cars or more in a drive-through queuing up is appropriate for some place like a TSS street. When this passed when Plan Commission recommended approval of this ordinance back in 2017, that was part of the concern on the part of staff, was that it's a street where it's supposed to be bicycle pedestrian friendly. And also most of these TSS streets are towards the center of the city, and it could take up a significant amount of floor space to be doing this. And so I'm just asking that, since the way this is going for TOD and that the TOD language is being copied for TSS, that you consider whether TSS streets really should have something like a Chick-fil-A, or even the extent of what was in 1609 South Park for Starbucks, which is in a CCT district, and whether that type of thing should be closer into the center of the city and taking up that much more space and having that impact of autos and taking other businesses out of the mix. So, thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Linda is our only registrant. Are there any questions of Linda? Seeing no raised hands, I will close the public hearing. Are there questions of staff? Commissioner Solheim.
Thank you. Just one question regarding prohibiting drive-through only businesses. That is for all zoning districts and all area outside of the TOD, correct?
That's correct. I know there was some consideration of just doing it specific to TOD, but then it seemed counter to some of our equity goals that are really about the entire city.
Okay, thank you.
Alder Figueroa Cole.
So following up on that question, is that for all new construction or for existing buildings that they need to be, we expect people to also modify the businesses to accommodate the pedestrian areas?
So it would be new drive-throughs. It would be triggered, but if someone has an existing drive-through window, whether they're using it or not, they could continue to use in that way as a drive-through only establishment if it's already existing.
Okay. I mean, I'm thinking that we have a project over here on the of Verona Road on converting a bank into a coffee shop. And I just want to, I don't quite understand if there will be a negative impact on whatever is already happening on that particular project. But the building already exists, it has a window because it was the bank, but it wasn't, the bank doesn't usually have a walk-in window. So you don't see this impacting that particular project?
I guess I don't know the details on that one offhand, but can someone go inside
Yes,
to
they would
get
have, I
services
think
as well.
it's
So
gonna be
then,
service, yes.
so that then they would meet because they can get service by going inside the building.
Okay,
It's
perfect.
just for a building where it's truly just you have to drive or bike up.
Like the Mocha and Mineral Point Road.
Yeah, like a business like that. Yep, they would have to either add a walk-up window if they don't already have one. Again, this is for new. The existing, they can continue to operate as they have.
Okay, thank you. That's what I got.
Thank you. Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. Along those same lines, Katie, let's say an existing fast food restaurant in one of the districts in question with a drive-through, periodically, it seems every 25 years, they come out with a new model of building and they replace their structures entirely with a new model. This would not allow such a wholesale replacement. I think you said 50% or something. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, so it depends on whether it's located in the TOD overlay district, what's triggered. But in the TOD overlay, they would not be able to put like drives in front of the building, parking in front of the building, the vehicle access sales and service window. Even if they had that historically, well, like now that you're demoing the building and building new, it's a total redo. And same thing with a major building addition, that 50%.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood that correctly. Thanks. That was my question.
Yep.
Thank you. Alder Figueroa Cole.
I'm sorry, I have another question. Bouncing off the last question. So do we have any number of projects in the pipeline before this goes into effect? And if we have them, will this apply to projects that are already in the pipeline?
Yeah, it would apply to any project that hasn't already put in an application. That's kind of like when you've locked in the code, unless you decide to be reviewed under the new code. So sometimes applicants may want to opt into a new code for some reason. But in this case, if they already had an application in, whether it's the land use application, if they need approval by the Plan Commission or others, or if they are permitted use that just need the site plan review, they'd have to have that application in for a site plan review. But otherwise, yeah, it would just be, starting as soon as it's enacted.
Already.
So there could be a scenario, yeah, where someone's planning a one-story building with a drive-through, and if they don't get their application in time, they're going to have to do a two-story.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. Since Vice President Figueroa Cole asked another question, I will too. And we heard in public comment about, what should these drive-throughs be allowed at all in these interior zoning districts. Let's say that a business does propose a drive-through and it is in a two-story building and it meets the standards with respect to the zoning district. But there, maybe there could be 30 cars lining up to get through this place if it is a fast food restaurant. Wouldn't that consideration be taken care of in conditional use process? Assuming it would be a conditional use. So those things would come to the forefront if they were proposed, or would it be through staff review? How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, I mean, those are things that certainly, do come up. I know we have limitations of what we can change to the conditional use process. Traffic engineering is always very involved as well with these projects because queuing is a big concern and making sure cars aren't backing up into the street. And it can be a very different number of cars that'll queue for a Chick-fil-A versus picking up groceries at a grocery store. They may both be drive-throughs, but the queuing needs are significantly different. So that is something staff is reviewing, particularly traffic engineering. But yeah, we could still have a Chick-fil-A level site where there's a lot of cars, and if they can figure out how to fit it in there on their site, then it would be allowed according to the zoning code.
And would that would plan commission see that? Would it likely be a conditional use requirement, or how would that process play out? I wonder. Might vary.
Yeah, so I think maybe need to check for sure, but I am pretty sure that a vehicle access sales and service window or drive-through is a conditional use everywhere in the entire city. So anytime we've got a new conditional use for a drive-through, it's going to be seen by a plan commission.
Okay, thanks. That's what I was kind of thinking. That was helpful. Thank you. That was my second and last question.
Are there any further questions? Seeing no raised hands, we need a motion. Alderfield.
Thank you, Chair. I'll move that the Plan Commission recommends that the Common Council approve this zoning change.
Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Figueroa Cole. Alderfield, did you wish to speak to your motion?
Yeah, just briefly. So I was interested in working on this, given that the technical interpretation of the existing transit-oriented development overlay district allows for a drive-through to be considered under the building when there's not a substantive portion of the building above the drive-through, and I wanted to clarify or advance that requirement a little further in order to make sure that we are wisely using our land in the city of Madison, especially within the TOD overlay district. And I was thinking about how we can make sure we're not only catering to auto-oriented uses when we're thinking about the kinds of businesses that can set up and build in Madison. And so that was why I was interested in working on the piece that prohibits drive-through only businesses. And I think that while we're making critical investments in our transit infrastructure, this is a good idea. So I ask your support and thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Are there any further comments, discussion before we come to a vote? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is Agenda Item 6, Legistar A2732, located at 6910 East Buckeye Road, Alder District 16, consideration of a conditional use in the agricultural district for a home occupation in an accessory building. And Tim Parks will give us a bit of an overview. Tim.
Chair, members of the commission, 6910 East Buckeye Road is a request for a home occupation with an outside employee. The applicant, Thomas D. Flynn, operates a window washing, pressure washing, and gutter cleaning business from the single family residence that is located on the property and wishes to employ someone to handle administrative tasks for the business. The employee does not live on site, and that is one of the triggers for where Plan Commission approval of a conditional use for a home occupation can come into play. So the request before the commission is to allow an employee from outside the home who does not reside on the property to handle office sort of work for the business. Staff has reviewed the request for the outside employee for the home occupation and believes that the Plan Commission can find the standards met. However, as noted in the staff report and in the attached memo by Katie Bannon, the zoning administrator, there is a zoning violation on the property that the city is currently prosecuting Mr. Flynn for. And in order to approve the conditional use for the outside employee for the home occupation is requesting a condition of approval that the conditional use not be commenced until a plan and action towards removal of the illegal filling of a regulatory floodway has been approved and proceeds accordingly to the satisfaction of the zoning administrator and in compliance with the zoning code. That concludes the staff report. I'll be happy to answer any questions after the public hearing.
Thank you, Tim. I will open the public hearing. The first registrant is Roger Sage, West Mifflin Street, Madison, in support, wishing to speak. And he is representing the property owner, Thomas Flynn, Action Professional Window Cleaning Incorporated. Roger, you have 3 minutes.
Well, thank you very much. Let's make sure I can appear here. I guess I can't appear to. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
All right, I just don't seem to be able to appear via video, but I'm just going to go ahead here. So we're Tom and Libby, who are the Tom is the owner, Libby is the employee. They've agreed to all the use limitations that were recited. But then there's the issue of Tom's mistake of putting fill in the back of the property without checking with the DNR first about the 100-year floodplain. So that suggestion is to condition the commencement of the use of the home office on an unrelated condition that the officer didn't first satisfy. It has to first satisfy this existing fill issue. And I'm going to give 3 reasons why the application be approved without that condition. The first and the foremost is diligence. Tom Flynn's been working diligently to get the fill issue resolved. First thing he did is go to the DNR, walk through the property. Since last September, I've discussed options with Matt Tucker to remove the fill to a level acceptable to Wisconsin DNR. I've talked to Will Disser at Wisconsin DNR. In the meantime, Matt got back to me with a plan in December with DNR to draw the fill back to an acceptable level. I give him a lot of credit for that. The U.S. Geological Survey of Floodway says it's determining the boundaries of a regulatory floodway are difficult because it's established in many ways. And in this case, Tom's property is about a 1/4 mile from Door Creek, which is a tiny little creek running along the north side of his property. Tom has allowed me to retain Robert Montgomery, who's an adjunct professor at UW, who specializes in stormwater management. And I've had discussions with him. I had a discussion today. He says we're dealing with a regulatory 100-year floodplain, which is basically an area designed to store water. And there's a realistic possibility the situation can be remediated by making an alternative basin or to store the water right or nearby. It could also be that the current fill does not impact that, but he'd have to do a survey. So those costs have to be considered by Tom, and that's what he's looking at now. If the best option is to remove the fill, he's totally committed to do that, but he should be given a chance. The second point I'd like to make is deterrence. No one other than Tom has more interest in getting it resolved. He's currently facing ordinance violations as indicated. So I'm working with the city attorney's office. They're aware of the efforts we're making to try to get the fill issue resolved. It's not going to go away, and there's no reason for this committee to deny a conditional use for home office on solving that issue. It's going to get solved. And finally, there's a penalty. There's nothing to be gained by preventing Tom from being able to earn a living by running the small window washing business. It's a family business. He's not a repeat offender. He filled there by mistake, and he's working hard to fix it. I would like the commission to keep that in mind. The section that's cited by zoning provides the commission may consider history of compliance with relevant, and I repeat that, relevant ordinances. The fill issue I submit is a different issue. It's located a long way from the house. It's in the back of the property, and it should not affect the application for home office. If the commission decides that some additional deterrence other than what's already going on and the efforts to mitigate that are already going on, there has to be more. At least I submit that Tom should be given an opportunity to run the home business in the meantime, and and, be given an opportunity, a reasonable opportunity to solve the problem with the city.
Thank you. That concludes your available time. We have a second registrant, Thomas Flynn, who is the property owner, Buckeye Road, Madison, support wishing to speak. Thomas, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Hello, it's Tom.
You have 3 minutes.
So yeah, I'm just calling to, like Roger said, I am working on getting that issue with the floodplains there resolved. I did, as soon as I got notice of that, I did get a hold of the DNR, and I had a guy come out and he looked it over. It's all dry. There's nothing there, but I do understand the rules and everything. But he did write a letter and everything, and Roger has it. I don't know if they sent that to you or not, but it's saying that, as far as he was concerned, it wasn't affecting any kind of floodplain or nothing. When I put that fill in there, I bought that property in 2019. I've done nothing but, improve it, clean it up. It was a real mess. I don't know if anybody knows the property. It used to be the Critter Corral, and it was just, really, quite honestly, a mess. And that's all I've done is clean it up. The property's beautiful right now. When I had the fill dumped in there, all I was doing, there's a big slab in the back, and the lady I had bought it from, it had already put a bunch of fill in there. I didn't really think anything of it. I just, kind of cleaned it up, straightened it up, and rounded it off and everything. Didn't know I was violating anything until I got that first letter. So, I'm certainly, willing and take full responsibility to do what I got to do. I just, I started this business. I've had it for 35 years. Started it from scratch. I have literally thousands of residential customers and some commercial customers too. And, with this whole thing that's been going on, it just really gives the guy pause because it's costing me a lot of money. Realtor fees alone, I'm up into the 10 grand area. So I'd really like to get it resolved. I'd really like to be able to do what I'm asking, and I certainly would, go along with whatever they come up with and get it cleaned up to their satisfaction.
Thank you, Thomas. We have
Sure.
one more registrant available to answer questions. Libby Schmidt, Buckeye Road, Madison, in support, available to answer questions. Are there questions of any of our registrants? Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. I imagine this is for Mr. Flynn. Can you tell us about the timing of the either the remedying the current situation through what you've discussed, maybe with zoning, which means I think moving a lot of dirt around, it sounds like. Why can't that happen sooner rather than later? Why do you need, is it because you need the DNR to approve it and you feel like this is going to take some time? Why would it take so long to initiate that project?
Well, Roger had contacted this hydrologist, I guess he is, but he just, as far as I know, just got a hold, the guy finally got back to him today. So we're trying to figure out what our options are. And yes, you're right. There would be a lot of moving dirt around. I just don't see how they would think that would be helping the property. I'd have to go in there with backhoe at the very least, or bulldozers down there in the field, which would do. Right now it looks beautiful, and it isn't harming anything. It is dry as can be. That guy that did come from the DNR, he came out with waders and stuff. Well, he found out real quick he had no need for waders. He wrote a letter and everything saying that, as far as he was concerned, it wasn't hurting anything as far as he was concerned, but he added in there that, he ain't the one making that call, but his opinion was it isn't harming anything. And I think actually, going in there and removing the fill would probably, I don't know, it's not going to help it any, because it's, like I say, it is all dry back there. It hasn't flooded in I don't know how long. I mean, I don't know when they, put the plan into action, but there's a house next door to me, and my back of my hill is in about the same area as their house is. They're actually even back a little further. And like I say, it's dry. It hasn't flooded at all ever since I've been there. I don't know when the last time it ever did flood. The creek is back about 200 yards from where we're talking about here.
Thank you,
And
Thomas. Thank you, Thomas. Did that answer your question?
It did partially, and if I could just ask another quick question related.
Yes, please.
I think, Tom, you can answer this. If we were to alter the recommended condition, I'm not saying that we will, but if we were to alter it so that we included the option of a DNR approved alternate method, for instance, a new retention area or something that handled an equivalent amount of water, although we wouldn't include all those details. Would that help you at all?
I don't know how that would help me any. I mean, what I was really hoping for is that, whoever was wondering, if this is really a floodplain, if it really was causing any kind of problems or anything, if, they could come out and take a quick look. I know you guys are busy and have your other things to do, but I really believe that anybody that looked at it would determine very quickly that the fill that I put in there isn't harming.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but if I can just say that we're not floodplain experts, so we sort of have to take the word of DNR. But I was looking for an avenue for you, perhaps, to have an.
I'd have no problem with that. I would. No,
but it wouldn't help you timing wise. Is probably the issue for you. Is timing wise, it wouldn't help you much because you'd still have to go through the whole process. Correct.
I'd probably still have to go through the same process.
Okay, that's what I was after. So I don't know if that'll help, but I'll stop for now.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Thomas.
Thank you,
Commissioner Solheim.
Thank you. This question is likely also for Thomas. So you mentioned, and Roger mentioned, the hydrologist that was recently contacted and the DNR representative that came out maybe originally. I think this was originally reported 2 years ago. So I think that's part of the concern, just how long it's been outstanding. Can you talk through what was done between originally receiving that and then recently contacting the hydrologist?
Nothing, because I've been waiting to hear what the hydrologist said. I mean, we were talking about surveying and stuff, and at first I was going to put in for a commercial, change I wanted to change 1 acre into commercial and leave the 20 acres, agricultural. But I guess it was mainly just because I didn't know exactly what I had to do, and I was under the impression that I really hadn't harmed anything. But again, I'm not the guy that gets to determine that, so I don't know if I answer your question there or not. But
just to clarify, when was the hydrologist contacted? Roughly?
Well, Roger contacted him quite a while ago, so I know you'd have to ask Roger that, because I don't know the answer to that question, but I know it's been quite a while.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. Could we get Roger then, please, to answer that question?
Absolutely. So we're
looking for the date that the hydrologist was contacted.
Yeah, that would be January
of this year or last year?
Of this year.
Okay, thank you. Did you have any further questions, Commissioner Solheim?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for our registrants? Seeing no raised hands, are there questions of staff? Commissioner Solheim.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the condition related to this. It mentions the conditional use shall not be allowed to commence until a plan and action towards removal of the fill has been approved and proceeds accordingly. I'm guessing that's a little vague intentionally to give you some latitude on it. Is the idea that you'd like that to be addressed entirely, or a plan presented that can be reviewed and approved?
It could just be a realistic plan with a timeline. You know, as you're kind of mentioning, this has been going on for 2 years now. It's not the DNR that has jurisdiction over this. So there's the FEMA regulations, then DNR has the power, and then they give it to the communities. We're required to follow the floodplain regulations. It's not DNR that comes out and determines whether it's floodway as is mapped or floodplain or not that at all. It's the city. You know, it's really, we're on the hook. The entire community's on the hook, because if we don't follow our floodplain regulations, DNR comes to us and says, you're no longer eligible as a community for floodplain insurance. So it is a really big deal. I don't know that I talk with Will Disser, you know, relatively regularly on floodplain things. He has not said that there's no issue. We've been working with them. He continues to reach out about, have you had a resolution on this? Because it is a problem for the city. So just so far, we still haven't seen, you know, really any progress, any realistic timeline. This seemed like a very reasonable condition to just, we need to see this resolved. So I think I was gonna say, the hydrologist too. You know, you keep hearing about hydrologist. Hydrologist is not qualified to do this work. There are engineering firms that do this work. We really want to see a contract with an engineering firm, if that's the route that they want to go, to try to restudy and determine that's not floodway. And floodway is, you know, the most significant part of our floodplain, right? That's where they expect water to go, right around a channel of a body of water. So it's much more significant than even a 100-year floodplain.
Thank you, Kate.
What's been
Very
built.
helpful.
Thank you. Did you have any further questions? Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. Katie, if I was mentioning an alteration to the suggested condition that included other methods of accommodating the stormwater, for instance, if, you know, digging a basin to accommodate the estimated floodwaters, if that were for some reason would help things along, we could add that. But who would determine that, whether or not that strategy would even be feasible? Would that be FEMA, or would that be the city, or?
It would be the city, and the property owner would contract with an engineering firm that could do those determinations of, is there another place that the floodway waters can go? Can you alter this floodway in this way, in a way that doesn't impact flooding on this property or others? Yeah.
And do you think the condition is
all that math?
And do you think the condition as written would work for that scenario?
Yes, that's definitely something that could be presented as part of, you know, we're going to hire a contractor, a licensed engineer that can do this work, and they're going to have this plan for resolving it. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Are there further questions of staff? Further questions of staff? Seeing none, we need a motion. Commissioner Solheim.
I will move that the Plan Commission find the standards are met and approve the conditional use to allow an outside employee for home occupation at 6910 East Buckeye Road, subject to the conditions in the staff report, including the recommended condition in the zoning administrator's memo dated May 6th.
Is seconded by Alderfield. Commissioner Solheim, did you wish to speak to your motion?
I'll just briefly add, as noted in the staff report, it is within the Plan Commission's jurisdiction to add conditions to a conditional use approval. And I do believe that the applicant's history of non-compliance, given the long period of time this issue has been outstanding, is relevant to this approval, and therefore that condition is appropriate.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comments before we come to a vote? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, moving on to agenda items 8 and 9. Note that these items are related and will be considered as one public hearing. Following the public hearing, the Plan Commission shall make separate findings and motions on each agenda item. Agenda item 8, Legistar 82733, approving the revised preliminary plat of Midpoint Meadows on property addressed as 2150 Marty Road, 7751 Midtown Road, and 7342 through 7762 Raymond Road, Alder District 1. And agenda item 9, Legistar 82752, approving the final plat of Midpoint Meadows at the same location. And we will have a presentation, information by Tim Parks. Tim, you're up.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Plan Commission. Just briefly, an overview. The preliminary plat of Midpoint Meadows was originally approved by the Common Council earlier this year on February 13th, subject to conditions following a Plan Commission recommendation of approval on February 5th, both of the original preliminary plat and of a zoning map amendment to provide permanent zoning for the roughly 101 acres of land that comprise the Midpoint Meadows subdivision. One of the conditions of approval was a requirement that the applicant submit a revised preliminary plat for the subdivision with the first final plat that addresses many of the major non-standard conditions of the February approval. The revisions on the current proposed preliminary plat include removal of 3 private open space outlots, the removal of the landscape easement along most of the High Point Road frontage, and also a slight adjustment to the unit mix in the development, which increased by 3 the number of single-family lots from 148 to 151, a slight increase to 98 lots for 49 future 2-family twin homes, and 2 lots for future multifamily development with an increase of approximately 12 total units between the 2 lots. The subdivision also includes a lot for future mixed use and commercial development in CCT zoning, an outlot for a private alley that will serve a block of the 2-family twin homes adjacent to the corner of, or the future corner of Midtown and Raymond Roads and its future intersection with South High Point Road. 2 outlots to manage stormwater for the subdivision, as well as 2 outlots for future development. Of note, the 2 outlots for future development, outlots 5 and 6 east of Marty Road. Since the subdivision was previously before the Plan Commission, the city has entered into negotiations and a purchase and sales agreement with the subdivider to acquire the land east of Marty Road within the subdivision. So outlots 5 and 6, which are identified for future development, are going to be or are scheduled to be acquired by the city for regional stormwater management. That was something that was on the horizon when the preliminary plat and rezoning requests were before you in February. Since that time, the city has adopted a resolution approving a purchase and sales agreement and the negotiations for that, as well as a budget amendment for the stormwater utility to accommodate the acquisition of that property. Outlots 5 and 6 are scheduled to be acquired as part of the city's acquisition of approximately 72 acres of land, which includes land just north of Midtown Road, outside of the Midpoint Meadows subdivision, which is being acquired with that same resolution and agreement for expansion of Elver Park. The applicant has also submitted their first final plat for approval, which includes most of the Midpoint Meadows subdivision. Excludes, however, the lot for future mixed use and commercial development, and one of the 2 lots proposed for multifamily development. There's also a local street, which is shown on the preliminary plat as Ridgemont Road, which is not being platted at this time and will instead be platted in a future phase. Planning staff and staff from reviewing agencies have reviewed the revised preliminary plat and proposed final plat and believe that the applicable standards for approval can be met. That the revised preliminary plat addresses certainly the vast majority of major and non-standard comments from the February approval. And we believe that the both requests merit approval. And I'd be happy to answer questions following the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 3 people registered in support and available to answer questions. So I will open the public hearing. Brian Munson, East Lakeside Street, Madison, in support, available to answer questions, representing Viridian Homes, Southtown Drive, Madison. Dan Day, Westward Way, Madison, in support, available to answer questions, also representing Viridian Homes. And Matt Brink, Southtown Drive, Madison, in support, available to answer questions, and also representing Viridian Homes. Are there questions for any of our registrants? Are there questions of any of our registrants? Seeing no raised hands, I'll close the public hearing. Are there questions of staff? Questions of staff? Then I would be looking for a motion. Alder Duncan.
We move that we approve the revised preliminary plat of Midpoint Meadows on property addressed as 2150 Marty Road, 7751 Midtown Road, and 7342 through 7762 Raymond Road.
Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Field. Did you wish to speak to your motion, Alder Duncan?
No.
Any discussion? Comments, discussion? Seeing none, we'll come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Then moving on, we need a motion on agenda item 9, approving the final plat. Alder Duncan.
I move that we approve the final plat of Midpoint Meadow on property address as 2150 Marty Road, 7751 Midtown Road, and 7342 through 7762 Raymond Road.
Seconded by Alder Field. Did you wish to speak to your motion, Alder Duncan?
No.
Thank you. Any discussion or comments? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote. I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Next, is there any business by members? Seeing no raised hands, we will go to the secretary's report. Bill, you're up.
Thank you, Chair. A few things on the secretary's report this evening. First, I wanted to call attention to the Planning Division annual report, something that we do every year, just to recap all the great and hard work done by our staff and commissions. So I hope you have an opportunity to look through that. Next, I wanted to mention that on tomorrow night's Common Council agenda is the appeal of the demolition permit that was not approved by the Plan Commission for 428, 444 State Street. You may recall that Alder Bennett filed that appeal, so I wanted to let you all know that that is on the Plan Commission, or sorry, Common Council agenda for tomorrow evening. Also on the Plan Commission for tomorrow evening, there are some changes to the Plan Commission membership. And so being introduced tomorrow night and scheduled for action at the meeting on May 21st, Commissioner McCahill is proposed to move from current first alternate spot to a full member, I guess they're called, that you're called. And then also two new members one is Sarah Sanders, who is being nominated as the first alternate. And also, I believe it's Angelie Bassin. I have not met her yet, and when I do, hopefully she will let me know how to pronounce her name correctly, and I apologize if I did not get that right, but Angelie as the second alternate. Also, tomorrow night for introduction and action would be the appointment of District 19 Alder Uguier, replacing Alder Figueroa Cole on the Plan Commission. So I noticed that Alder Uguier is in attendance this evening. So he's already getting up to speed here. And I believe that's all except for current or recent council actions and upcoming matters. If you want me to just keep rolling, I'll keep rolling.
Yeah,
keep rolling. Recent notable Common Council action was the approval at the last council meeting of the accessory dwelling unit amendment to the zoning code that you all recently approved, and I believe, like at the Plan Commission meeting, the Common Council approved that unanimously. Upcoming matters, May 20th. Really, nothing I want to highlight here. However, on June 10th, there are a lot of items to highlight here, and I think that's one that we all will need to be well caffeinated. So, in addition to those items that are listed here, tonight you referred items 10 through 13 on your agenda to the June 10th meeting. So those are 4 actions related to the redevelopment of the Essen House block. That's what I'll call it. Easy to locate. So those items will be added to that list of upcoming matters for June 10th, as well as 755 Braxton Place is the second bullet on that list of upcoming agenda items. That is a proposal to demolish a 10-story building and construct 3 5-story apartment buildings containing 344 total units. So that's on the triangle. So this is a CDA, Community Development Authority project. The item under that, 205 South Stoughton Road, is the next tiny house village that you may have heard about. Project at 515 Whitney Way, and then finally, last but not least, proposed redevelopment at 6610 through 6706 Old Sauk Road. Proposal to construct a 3-story, 138 unit apartment building. So June 10th is shaping up to be a busy night. But that is all I had this evening.
Okay, thank you very much, Bill. With that, I think we're moving on. Alder Figueroa Cole.
Not sure if we are about to motion out, but I don't know, that was the next step. And I was wondering if I can have a minute.
Sure, please go ahead.
I just wanted to say that, I mean, I know this is recorded, but I will not admit that I said this in public. How much have I enjoyed being on Plan Commission? It has been a very stressful year, but the last 9 months at work had been extremely stressful, and the load of work of this commission did not make that any easier. But I learned so much, and as much as I'm going to miss being here, I will show up once in a while. I'm so glad that John is able to join you guys, because the knowledge gain here is just transfers to everything else that we do at the council, on every single agenda. So thank you for your patience with all my questions, because I know I tend to ask a lot of questions, and thank you for all the mentoring that I got from some of you. And maybe in the future, I'll be back in Plan Commission as a community member or something. I don't know. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Well, one of the things I have certainly appreciated about you has been the questions that you have asked, because they have added a lot to our discussion. So thank you, and for your input. Commissioner Solheim.
Thank you. I just want to say, Alder Figueroa Cole, we will miss you. And I suppose we have to share you with other committees, but thank you for your service. And also, since we jumped right by it, I just wanted to say cheers to staff on the annual report. I look forward to going through that every year, and it always impresses me, all of the things that you get done in a year. So thank you for sharing that and for reporting it so well.
Thank you, Commissioner. And we will welcome you next time, Alder Ugair. So thank you for coming tonight. And with that, I will look for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Alder Field. Seconded by Alder Figueroa Cole. And I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands to object, we are adjourned, and I will see you on May 20th, I think it is. So thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your evening.